All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with my friend Tom Sharp. Tom, welcome. So awesome to have you today, man.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for having me. I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to our conversation today.
I am too. I am too. And I got to tell you, I'm going to give Shannon a quick shout out because
Yes.
Shannon is. I had her. Actually, I've known Shannon for a few years now, and she ended up participating on one of these virtual roundtables that I host not too long ago, and after doing that, she introduced you and I because she was telling you, hey, you should really participate on one of these roundtables that Kevin
Yep.
does, and through that process, you and I got to know each other a little bit, and I just really came to be fascinated with some of the stuff that you have done and was like, Tom, we got to do an interview for the podcast too. And right now you are in
I'm,
this kind of a beautiful paradise where you're at right now too and stuff.
it absolutely is. I'm right in the middle of the jungle in Costa Rica,
Yeah.
and they have a very fast internet here is what I enjoy,
Nice.
and a ton of birds and flowers, and it's so beautiful. I love this
Very cool.
country.
Very
Yes.
cool. I got to spend some time years ago when I was in the Army. I got to spend some time in Central America, and I absolutely loved it down there.
Yes, I can
And
imagine.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, why don't let's start by I'll just turn it over to you so that you can give some context to this, and we'll start by having you share a little bit of your background. What do you
Sure.
do? Who do you serve? What inspires you most about the work that you do? We'll just kind of start there, Tom.
Absolutely. I'm Tom. I'm married to Honey. We have four very beautiful and very stubborn children, and they got both those attributes from my wife, of course. And I come from Europe, and I've worked with a ton of entrepreneurs and leaders in all kinds of capacities, like CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies. But I also like working with like regular team managers, but most of my fun is in working with entrepreneurs. So that's what I've been doing over the last couple of years. And we are moving into a much more international world right now, which is a big transition for me.
Mhm.
As you can hear, English is not my native language, but I try to speak it as well as I can. And I'm very much looking forward to share all our experiences and tips and tricks and techniques, but also like the foundational concepts that we've discovered in the last decade or two, three, about productivity, about leadership, about upgrading the level of your team to a worldwide audience. That's basically what I'm planning to do. And I love working with Gen Z, with the young guys and the young ladies who are in leadership. And so we're planning to do kind of like the freemium model where we give away all our knowledge, all our ideas, and then work one-on-one with some selected entrepreneurs to help them. Basically, what we do is we help them fix their most important problems, their
Okay.
unsolvable issues, is what
Uh,
I love doing.
Gotcha. Well, it's interesting because I'll tell you in my journey, I guess in the simplest of terms, that's how you would describe what I do too. And what I can tell you I've discovered over the years is that as a business grows, as an entrepreneur grows, and they become more successful, the size and the scope of the problems that they have also expands dramatically.
Absolutely.
And the bigger the business, the bigger the problems, but also the bigger the payoff for solving those problems.
Exactly.
And
So so I'm a 10 quick start. You know Colby, Kathy Colby's a great work and test. So I like change and variety and challenges, and I like things to be a little megalomaniac to kind of fire me up. But that's also what I like in working with entrepreneurs, because every business is different and every team is different and every situation is different, and
yeah,
there's just no um, one of the things that I learned is that bright shiny objects are very attractive to me, but it's in there's not a real template. Like if somebody got some success with doing, like, talk about you bring people together, but 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 you basically need to be Kevin to be able to do that in the way that you are doing that, right?
Mhm.
And I could not trade places with you because my profile is different, my personality is different, and and the more you get into those unique specifics, the more interesting it becomes to me.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Yeah. And it's the I just you're right. Every entrepreneur is different. Every business is different. Every problem is different. And the more intimate we become, well, I mean, I know for me, the more and the longer I've have a relationship with somebody, the just more empathetic I become to them and what they're dealing with, and just kind of in tune with that. And it's like, you just create this friendship and this relationship over time, where you just have, I mean, I just have so much, what's the right word I'm looking for, not empathy, but just respect for the people in my life, for the entrepreneurs that I've
Yes,
known all these years. And I want the best for them. And
absolutely.
yeah,
And but you also know, like, um, let's look at Joe Polish. Is a
sure.
completely different guy than Perry Marshall.
Yeah,
Is a completely different guy than Yannick Silver. Is a completely different guy than Dan Kennedy or Dan Sullivan or all these guys. Like, everybody is unique.
yeah,
And that's what I thoroughly enjoy. Like,
yeah,
I like to help as many people as possible. Impact is very much a word that motivates me. But what I really like about what I'm doing is that there's no cutter solutions for the real important problems. The real issues need more work, they need more thinking, they need more creativity. And that makes it different all the time.
yeah, yeah,
So every day is different for me. I love that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Tom, I really appreciate you sharing that and giving us a little bit of context into, like, who you are and your background and that kind of thing. And I'm really excited about this transition that you're in, because your vision has just got so much bigger, like mine has.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I just, over the last few years, I've kind of been going through this transition myself, where
Yes.
I had this experience and I'm like, wow, this has been really cool. But what if we focused on this? What kind of impact could we have then? And now it's like, what I've discovered, yeah, we can have a way bigger impact when we're making these shifts and stuff. And you're in the middle of that right now. And so what I want to do is just switch things up a
Yep.
little bit, and I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. So, have you ever met or been introduced to a person that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person? And Tom, I'm really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic.
So when I would say no, no, I'm sorry, I don't have such a person in
You should
my
have let
life,
me know
it
that
would be
before we
like
got
a
on
really short interview, right?
here.
At one point in my life, I wrote comedy for national television. I didn't perform, I was one of the writers, and my mind cannot stop coming up with jokes. But I definitely do, Kevin. I have this one guy, and he's had such an influence on me. And he completely, everything I learned from him completely changed the course of my life. And what I'm doing right now would not be possible without Perry Marshall.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I met him in 2009, and I
Okay.
think I was on his list for a couple of years already.
All right.
And what happened is I had been training software developers in how to build software, how to build maintainable software, especially. And I sold that business and I got into touch with, or I read the book Getting Things Done by David Allen.
Okay.
And I figured out that I needed to go train people in GTD, getting things done. But that is a whole different kind of business, because instead of selling software developers a 5-day course and then a 3-day course and then another follow-up 2-day course, I now had just a 1-day course, and I needed to figure out how to fill these rooms. It just didn't work like it used to work for me before.
Mm-hmm.
And I love sharing ideas and tips and tricks, and that's how my classroom filled themselves almost automatically.
Okay.
But now I had a whole different business, and I had to figure out marketing. So I tried to do some advertising on Google Ads, or AdWords as it was called at the time. And then, of course, I ran into one of Perry Marshall's Google AdWords ads, and I must have been drawn into this funnel, and gave him my email address and probably my home address, and I received this CD. Was it about guerrilla marketing, I guess? And then 1 or 2 years later, I became his client, and it's been a hell of a ride up until now.
Wow. Wow. You know what? And Perry, he is, I mean, one of the most prolific and deepest thinkers that
Yeah,
I know,
exactly.
you know.
Me
And
too.
so let's dig into this a little bit, because I got to tell you, you know, I think this is awesome that you're talking about Perry, because Perry and I are close friends as well.
Yes, you've known him even longer than I have.
And well, and I'll tell you, on a business side, he's been very instrumental in a lot of my success, but also on the
Cool.
personal side, uh, when my wife, we have 7 kids now, and I've got 6 grandchildren as well. Uh,
Yes.
but when my wife first came to me with the idea of she was wanting to adopt, and I'm thinking to
Right.
myself, honey, we've got 6 kids already. We're good. And she's like, I know, but I want to adopt. I want to make an impact on one child that wouldn't get to have that if it weren't for us. And she was just so set on this. Well, Perry was the
Who
first
do
guy.
you go to when
Yes. I'm
your
like,
wife comes
Perry,
to you?
help. and when I told him about that, he got a good chuckle. He's like, Kevin, he's like, there's a term for us, and it's called the reluctant husband, because this usually isn't the guy's idea. It's usually the woman's idea. And
I know.
so he could
We,
totally relate.
yeah, we
And
did a lot of foster, like taking care of foster children, especially in crisis situations. Like it's 11 at night, the police is on the phone, they just grab a couple of children out of a building, and they need some place for them to stay for the night or until
okay,
Monday when the regular care is open again. So we did
okay,
a lot of that, and I got to tell you, that was my wife's idea,
uh-huh,
and I was the reluctant husband. But
yeah,
I'm so glad that Perry was able to help you with your
for
whole
sure,
process, and yeah, that's so
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so he's adopted one child, and then after we adopted, Perry and his wife had adopted another child, and then we ended up being on their Christmas list. So every year we get a Christmas card along with the letter,
Nice.
and I know one year Perry had announced in the Christmas letter that they had adopted another child, and I read that letter first, and before giving it to my wife, I told her, I said, honey, don't get no
Forget it.
ideas when you read this, because we're not going to adopt a second one. and so, and so, but I
Uh,
would love for you to share, what are some things that have come from yours and Perry's relationship? What are some things that have come that, allowed the two of you together to make an impact, or him helping you, to make a much bigger impact that, hands down would have never come had you and Perry not met and started this relationship?
yes, I think for me, I was thinking about this, and there's two very important hows about how Perry influenced my life. And the first one is his mastermind,
Okay.
and it's called Roundtable, and he has got a couple of different programs now. But for me, it might be a bit of a European entrepreneurial perspective, It may also be just myself. In my family, nobody was an entrepreneur. My dad is a doctor. My mom was a nurse. I didn't know any entrepreneurs around me. That changed over time. But when I was in Roundtable, that was 2009. That was for the first time in my life as an entrepreneur that I was in a group of people who were encouraging me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it still touches my heart even when I shared it with you right now, Kevin. It's like it's as an entrepreneur, everything ends up on your responsibility list, right? You got to fix all the problems, or you got to figure out a way to have your team fix those problems. But the buck stops with you. And your colleagues or competitors, they are not encouraging you. Your banker doesn't know what's going on.
Yep.
The people on your team don't have your experience. In my case, my family members had no clue about what I was doing. So apart from enjoying all the non-standard tips and tricks, Perry calls his clients sometimes the renegade entrepreneurs. I really I feel in a way it kind of filled up my heart to have these people rooting for me and encouraging me and applauding me and just challenging me to move forward.
Yeah,
I I thought that was like on a very deep and very personal level. That was really important for me. And when you're filled up, you can also hand out more, right?
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. When we're
So
full, we have more to give. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are actually pretty lonely out there
Yeah.
because
Totally.
they don't have anybody who really understands what they're going through
Yeah.
or who is in the same situation. And so the work that you are doing and also the work that Perry has been doing in Roundtable, well, for me, that was really important. Also, what I found is that I really enjoy giving input in the hot seats of the other entrepreneurs.
Okay.
I did Roundtable for 4 years. And in the last year, I was thinking by myself, like, why am I so excited to go back to Chicago or to Orlando again? And the answer is like, oh, I already enjoy sharing ideas and tips and tricks and with them, with these other entrepreneurs in their hot seats, with the questions that they have. That I knew that was the time for me to go. Because going to roundtable just to give to other people in a way meant that I had grown to the point where 4 years of roundtable was enough for me, and I started to become part of other roundtables or other masterminds. But
Okay.
roundtable was my first mastermind experience with entrepreneurs, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
So give me an example of something that came out of that roundtable. It can be whether it was something that you were on the receiving end of or something that you were on the giving end of that you were able to give and contribute to somebody else. What's something that came from that experience that really stands out for you personally, Tom?
Can I mention two things?
Absolutely.
The first one is Barry discussing Colby,
Okay.
the Colby test, and us doing the Colby test, and me figuring out that I'm a 2, 3, 10, 4. So I don't have a lot of energy for details. I have no room for routine and repetition in my life, and I love challenges and change. That was really validating for me as well.
Mhm.
Um, it's absolutely not the culture that I was grown up in. I grew up like you need to have this focus, you need to specialize, you need to become an expert on this one subject. That's not me. I'm all over the place, and I know that I need to focus on the things where I can add the most value to the world. But that will always be a challenge. I always have side projects and other things that I'm doing just to keep myself engaged. So
Mhm.
that was the Colby test was really important for me, and we still use it a lot with our clients. The other memory that comes up is um, being pretty tall. I'm 6'6", deep voice. I seem to have some kind of a leadership vibe. Um, and I'm pretty direct. And that's also, I think, a language thing. But also, I've had 6 months of training in diplomacy from one of the guys who works with Marshall Goldsmith.
Okay.
And and a friend of mine said, "Well, Tom, that will always be a learned skill for you to be really diplomatic." So in this mostly American roundtable group, there was a situation where one of the entrepreneurs had his hot seat, and he shared about his family dynamics, where a lot of the profit that he made in his business, for all kinds of reasons, was distributed in her family by his wife.
Okay.
And there's all these entanglements going on and all these expectations, and nobody's really clear on what's going on. And he's frustrated and he loves his wife. But how do you? We talked about those issues. And at one point in time, I said, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sorry if I'm too blunt, but did I just hear you say that you feel? I I try to be a little diplomatic, right, by asking, turning it into a question. Did I just hear you say that you feel as if your wife is a vampire? And me saying that last word, like all the air was sucked out of the room. Like, there's no way you can say this to somebody, right? And he was actually in tears. And that's one of the most profound moments that I've had in any mastermind. But in the next meeting, he came back to me. He said, I'm so glad that you asked that question. And
Wow.
I this really helped me to get some clarity and to discuss things and to move forward in a really, really good way.
Mhm.
And I'm never ever trying um, to insult anybody. That's just
Sure.
not who I am.
Yeah.
But being a little, like, taking the liberty of being a little bit more direct, a little bit more blunt than everybody else in the group. That yeah, I kind of
I
enjoyed that.
totally. But it comes from this loving place,
Absolutely,
because we care about them, and I
absolutely,
remember when I was talking with an entrepreneur about, we were exploring whether it made sense for us to do business together or not.
yes,
And one of the things I always look for in anybody that I'm going to partner with or anything like that is what is their, what's their inspiration? Why are they wanting to do whatever it is that we're talking about doing together, or
right,
whatever it is that they want to do? And it needs to be about more than I want to grow my business or I want to add revenue or whatever.
yeah,
That's just surface level stuff to me, and that kind of a conversation doesn't even inspire me, not one bit. It's got to be more around impact. It's got to be more around, and really I want to know, what is it going to do for them personally,
right,
for them, for their family, for their spouse, for their children, whatever that is. And if I can't find anything, if there's nothing there, they're not coming up with something, then the likelihood of us doing together, it probably ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. And with this gentleman, I I was just I was just look. You know what? There needs to be some kind of an inspirational thing here. There needs to be.
yes,
I mean, what is inspiring you to do this? Because anything else, if there's not that behind this, then you know what, then there's probably just some BS story we're telling ourselves here.
exactly,
And the first time I ever said that to somebody, it was kind of like, I was like, wow, I can't believe I just said that to them.
yes.
And but yet, what came from that was an absolutely beautiful thing. Yeah, no.
Exactly. Sometimes you get to wake up people, right?
Yeah.
But why I remember this and why it's still so funny in my mind, I mean, I was there. Why so funny in my mind is because it was pretty unexpected for me as well.
Yeah.
Like, I felt that was I was treading on holy ground, like his marriage relationship and the word vampire. I felt like I need to be a little careful here, but in the end, when you say it and everybody's and then they start laughing. I don't know, especially when it turns out well, right? When
Yeah.
he's really happy and sometimes I don't know. Um, Over the years, we've collected a lot of testimonials from our clients and also analyzed them a bit. And this word of directness that keeps coming back and again. And that's what I like about entrepreneurs. Like
Yeah.
we don't want to be insulted, right?
Yeah.
We want to be respected. But then we also don't want people to beat around the bush and what's that like throw sand in your eyes. I don't know if that's an expression in English even, but like we don't want our friends and our coaches and consultants to confuse things.
Yeah.
If it's
Yeah.
obvious to me where one of my clients is screwing up, if they're good clients, they want me to share that with him,
That's
with
right.
them in a respectful way.
That's
So
right.
Roundtable was my major um, how one of the ways that Perry really influenced my life. The other one is, and you also already touched on it, is his inspiration in going deeper in concepts and principles.
Yeah.
And Perry talks about Grendel and Grendel's mom from the Beowulf story, and how you need to go to the bottom of the swamp,
Yes.
and that may be really hard work to
Yeah.
work through all the confusion and to work through all the bullshit and through all the people that are sharing IDs for their own benefits instead of sharing the truth. And in the end, you've got to go get to the bottom where you have like firm footing underground again.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think that is so valuable and that's so inspiring to me.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, you're right. When you can, just cut through all the BS and minutia, and we get to the point where we're just operating in a way that is just in complete alignment with who we are, who
Yeah.
we want to show up as, all of that, how we want to show up. I mean, man, that all of a sudden we kind of get in this flow. Now that's not to say that we're not going to have problems. I mean, because we're always going to have
No,
problems,
absolutely not.
and and every time an entrepreneur solves one problem, it's only a matter of time till the next one's hitting our desk, and we wouldn't have
Exactly.
it the other way. We're going to get bored if we don't have problems,
Exactly.
you know. And so, and that's just the way it is. But we get to move through it, and we get to grow as a person. We get to grow our relationships, especially when we have relationships with people who are actively engaged with us and helping us solve those problems. It creates such a camaraderie. It creates such a, a trust in both character and competence.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
when those two trusts are present, what that does is it eliminates all friction. There is zero friction when we have trust in both character and competence of somebody else. And stuff happens at lightning speed when there's zero friction.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
So even before I met Perry, I was really inspired by a guy named Eli Goldrath,
Okay.
and he wrote a book. It's called The Goal. He wrote another book. It's called It's Not Luck, and he wrote a couple more books, and most of them are business novels. They're really readable, and it's like a storytelling way of sharing deep, important insights.
Okay.
But one of the things that I learned from him is to create what he calls a CRT, a tree of the current reality. Other people call it a root cause analysis diagram,
Okay.
where let me give you an example to make it a little more
Sure.
concrete. One of my clients says, Tom, I don't have time. Um, no, my revenue is not up to par. And I'm saying, why not? And then I start asking why questions. And he says, well, we don't sell enough. Well, why don't you sell enough? Well, we don't have enough sales calls. Well, why don't you have enough sales calls? Well, I don't have time to do more sales calls. Why not? Because I have to do all this administrative work. Well, why do you have to do all this administrative work? Well, because I don't have an assistant working for me who can take over that work for me. Well, why is that? Because I have no money. Why don't you have no money? Well, because I don't sell enough, because I don't do all these sales calls. So this is like a simple loop. And when we draw this on a whiteboard or we use software to do that, this is a simple, very, very simple loop. But we have also worked with our clients to create like extensive, really, really big trees. But what it allows us to do is to look at the bottom of the tree, and instead of solving the symptoms that you will find at the top,
Mhm.
you're going to solve the underlying causes, the underlying bottlenecks.
Okay.
And that's what I've been doing with my clients for ages now. Basically, everything we do, if it's about priorities or about upgrading your team or about making more money, let's focus on the bottlenecks instead of focus on the bright shiny objects kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
um, oh, you have a headache, here's a pill. You know that it just doesn't work 80% of the time. The bright shiny objects don't, and it's boring to my mind. So that's the other thing that I really enjoy in working with Perry, is where he is adamant about going to the bottom of
Yeah.
the swamp, sorry. And it's pretty hard for a 10 quick start to avoid the newest fad and the newest idea and the newest solution.
Yep.
But there just isn't an easy button, the that was easy button, that just doesn't exist if the problems become big and complex enough.
Yeah.
But those are the problems that I really enjoy solving.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what just really jazzes you, energizes you, and
Absolutely.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like this guy, he was having 60 hours, 60 hours of meetings every week in a company with 150 employees. And his secretary did the math for us. And she said he has 60 hours of meetings every week. A very, very creative guy. And we helped him to create such a root cause analysis diagram to identify the underlying bottlenecks, then to fix those bottlenecks instead of fixing the symptoms. And 3 months later, he could run his whole company with 15 hours of
Wow.
meetings.
Big difference.
That's what really jazzes me. That's what I
Yeah.
so love to do.
Yeah. I mean, man, you just let him reclaim 45 hours a week. That's a big fat hairy deal, you know?
And a lot of energy and resentment and boredom, and like, who loves to sit in meetings? Well,
Yeah.
he definitely didn't, but he didn't know a way out.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. That's powerful.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, Tom, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. And for anybody listening to this, it's like, man, Kevin, I just really like Tom. I like the way he shows up. Is there anywhere, do you have any resources that they can check out, or anywhere for them to find out more about what you guys are doing?
Absolutely. As I said, we are in the process of taking all our material from all our content from the last 2 decades and translating it into the English, and we're publishing it on buildcoolthings.blog, buildcoolthings.blog,
Okay.
and that's also where people can reach me.
Very good.
So I have a tip. It's called the binary emails or binary messages. Even that one tip or trick by itself can solve you so much time and save you so much time and solve so many problems. So we are uh, publishing more and more of those simple things to do for any leader, but especially for entrepreneurs.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'll make sure and we'll include that with the show notes and stuff. Tom, any last thing you would like to share before we call it a wrap?
I think I'm good.
All
Thanks for
right.
having me, and thanks for having this conversation, and thanks for
Absolutely.
enabling me to share my enthusiasm about everything that I've learned from you, but definitely also from Perry.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for this guy in my life and in our world. And I hope that he will keep doing what he has been doing for the next 16 decades or so. I don't
Yeah,
know.
right. For sure, for sure. Well, Tom, thanks again. Thanks so much. Really appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Kevin. Have a great day.